This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now.
Morning everyone, and welcome to the third innings, where finally the miracles of all miracles happened. England, reimagining cricket as we know it, came up with this revolutionary theory of pitching the ball up full length at and around off stump and just seeing what happens. It's incredible. The Baz bowlers might have changed cricket forever with this brilliant new concept, right? And frankly, it's a little bit embarrassing that the rest of cricket just hasn't done it before. You know, they just never thought of it. Sorry, it's so stupid. But I know it's not the biggest story of this day, but it is obviously something that absolutely had a huge part. The pitch is probably going to be the biggest story from this day. Lateral movement all day. I think it's worth going back and having a look at Australia's innings, though. Australia had a run out when I thought Green and Neser were batting okay together. I thought Carey was due for a few more runs, and they move a fielder into a position down the leg side. He hits it straight to him. The chances of that happening are pretty low. Like, you can say it's a plan and everything else, but most times you don't get that catch. And Weatherald also feather one down the leg side. So I think from Australia's perspective, their total was probably a little bit artificially lower than what it looks, than what it ended up being, just because of those wickets. I think England's score is about what we would expect England to do on a pitch like this. I've got this rule, and I've written about it a little bit more in the Substack piece or the video on the main channel, but I've got this rule that's like, I call the Liam Livingstone rule. I might have talked about this at the lunch show. I can't remember if I did now, but when Liam Livingstone plays one-day cricket for England, and sometimes he's the only spinner or the secondary spinner, whatever his role is, if he takes a bunch of wickets in the first innings, I see that as a bad sign for England, because that usually means that the pitch is spinning quite a bit and that the other team's going to have better spinners. When I saw some of the seam movement today early on, I thought to myself, this is a bad sign for England, because Gus Atkinson doesn't usually seam the ball that much. There was a ball he bowled to, I want to say it was Alex Carey, it might have been Usman Khawaja. It was certainly one of the lefties, where it was angled in, it hit some grass, it seemed away, and it also held in the pitch. And it seemed like a foot and a half. Like, he should have been playing from the top of his stumps, and it beat him well outside off stump. And straight away I thought to myself, well, that's not a good sign for England, because if Atkinson can move the ball that much, what is going to happen when Australia did that? And all fair dues to Atkinson and to Tongue. I thought they bowled really, really well. Cast and the new ball. I've got to do a whole article based on this now, because England just refused to let this go. But Cast and the new ball's a bit of an issue. But I thought Tongue bowled really well at times. He still came back for one spell with a knee-high full toss, but he did very well. Atkinson bowled well. This is a pitch that is kind of made for a bowler like Atkinson, and England gave themselves a chance. And then they came out to bat. And as good as Atkinson and Tongue bowled, I don't even know who you would say Australia's worst bowler was today. Is it maybe Stark or Richardson? I thought they both bowled really well. I would say they bowled, I mean, Richardson only bowled like 4 overs, didn't he? But it wasn't many overs anyway. But I would argue that they bowled as well as any of the English bowlers did. The fourth best, whoever the fourth best Australian bowler was, I thought was as good as the best English bowler. And that's the Liam Livingstone rule, right? Like, if the ball is seaming for England, it's probably going to seam twice as much for Australia, because Australia has bowlers who can handle that. Like, Neser's going to swing the ball, right? Stark's going to swing the ball. All 4 of them are going to, Richardson, if he was bowling earlier, would have swung the ball more, right? And then they're going to get more seam movement. And Boland is just pinging the ball sideways at you in unplayable delivery after unplayable delivery. Neser's right at the top. There's no knee-high full tosses from Neser, is there? It's just the difference is so stark, dare I say. There's a couple of other notes I have as well. One is on Harry Brook, who came out first ball when, what was the score? 12 for 3? 8 for 3? For 16? Yeah, something like that. One day I will do one of these lives with the scorecard open in front of me and not try and remember it off the top of my head. Today is not that day, though. but England were, checks notes, 3 for not many. Anyway, and Brook comes in first ball to Stark and runs down the wicket and tries to slap him over cover. There's a really good commentary about Ebony Rainsford Brent, and I was screaming this at my TV, so I was glad one of the commentators picked this up. I actually think by that point, someone asked me in the Discord channel when Australia got bowled out cheaply, how England should bat. Should they go to baseball? And I was like, no, just see what happens to start with. And once you know what the situation is, you can look at baseball. I think once they were 3 wickets down, I think baseball and attacking was a sensible way of at least putting Australia off their lengths for a moment and, you know, coming up, giving them something else to have a look at. No issue there. But if you just run down the wicket first ball and try and slog one, right? If you hit it for 4, I don't think that changes Australia off their length. The scores are already in your favour. Australia's going to keep bowling that. You have to hit 3 of those shots for it to actually change the way Australia is bowling and planning against you. So why do it first ball? Why not see what the pace of the wicket is? It seemed to me today that one of the reasons the wicket was so tough to bat on was the lateral movement, but also the stoppiness. I think there was a ball to Steve Smith in the first session. It seemed away and it was a beautiful ball, but actually if you watch it, I can't remember if they showed it from side on or a different angle, you could kind of see it grip and bounce up. So if you look at the way that Ben Duckett went out, you had to get used to the pace of the wicket. There was another England player who, it might have been Will Jacks, who chipped a couple up in the air. It might have been Smith, I don't know, but somewhere around that period of carnage. And so you can't be sure of the pace when you go out there. So forget the lateral movement, which is what Harry Brook's thinking about, right? Forget that because he's playing a cross-batted swipe over cover on the run, right? He's taking the lateral movement out of it. But he hasn't got yet the pace of the wicket because how could he? We saw Steve Smith struggle with the way the ball came on this pitch. Anyway. Just on Duckett, I just don't think Duckett needs to play in the last test. I wouldn't even call it being dropped if I was talking to him. I'd be like, no, it's not about you being dropped. We assume 90% certainty you are going to be opening in our next test match, right? Which I think is a fair, you know, considering what he's done over the last couple of years. I don't think you get rid of him after this one series. I certainly would. I mean, with the batting quality they have, I don't think they can afford to get rid of Duckett. But I do think you just say, look, you just need a break, right? I'm not even counting the Noosa and the video and all that stuff. I'm just saying, like, watching him bat at the moment, he doesn't even look like Ben Duckett. He just doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look like he's himself at the crease or anything. Not sure what a 5th test match is going to do. And I think this is the sort of thing I think teams would be better at understanding and dealing with. I know it's not really how cricket works, and we can go into all the different reasons why that is the case. But just say to him, look, it's fine. We'll try someone else, and then, you know, you're almost definitely going to come back for the next test. You know, there's going to be a lot of changes going on. Anyway, that's how I saw the day so far. I've already got a bunch of questions, so please keep lining them up as you can, and I'll get to them as many as I can before I obviously want to go to sleep, because I like to sleep. If you're ever doing overnight test matches, and I know a lot of you are, you know, are in time zones where you just have to do stuff like that. One of the lessons I would always say is it is very hard on day 1 to get the appropriate amount of sleep for an overnight game. But what you really want to do is make sure that you sleep between day 1 and day 2. In this case, maybe you don't have to, because it might not be the longest game. But that's that. I think if I had a rule for covering overnight games, I think that's what it would be. Anyway, Rushline have got some stats up as well. They have the MCG pitch heavily favours Pacers taking 78% of the wickets, and England's current 97 for 9. So they obviously fought back from there. Highlights the challenging batting conditions. Actually, I'm interested that it's only 78%. I wonder how far that goes back, and whether that goes back a little bit into the period when the pitches were a little bit flatter. But yeah, these wickets, the MCG has just become... The MCG has gone from a pitch that was too favoured to batting a couple of years ago. Was it Mark Wood and Alistair Cook? I've got a feeling I was at a test match where they both made a lot of runs, or I had to watch them bat for a long period of time. trying to think. I think I saw some other dull knocks there as well. It's gone from that, which was a terrible wicket. In fact, let me go. Here's a brief history of the MCG. So the MCG in 70s to 80s was a wicket that really fell apart. It uses the Merry Creek mud, and, as a Northern Suburbs boy, we're very proud of that. But let's be honest, that Merry Creek mud really did sort of produce pretty low, slow pitches that quite often deteriorated towards the end. And was really hard to bat on, right? They changed that because Aussie rules football is obviously what pays the way most of the year there. And so they went with the drop-in, which I think was the first regular drop-in. I know there had been drop-ins. Kerry Packer, obviously, was the person who paid for the drop-ins, and that's kind of why they were invented for World Series cricket. But I think as far as regular drop-ins over a long period of time, I think the MCG was the first. And those drop-ins were not particularly good. They had this weird tennis bally bounce. The cricket wasn't always entertaining to watch. So you'd gone from a kind of a shitty pitch to a kind of ordinary pitch. There was a brief period where there was some really good cricket played there, and you could make runs. Spinners were okay, and there was a bit in it for seam. And then it became this flat as a pancake wicket. And then from there, they've just put grass on it. So the MCG wicket, overall, considering it's Australia's most important ground, right, financially, if nothing else, it really has been quite consistently a shit pitch from the 70s onwards. And I'm not a great historian before that on the actual pitch itself. Like, I'd have to go into the records. But it's never really been famous for being a good pitch throughout the entire history of it. So what Rushline is talking about here at the moment, I think anyone who's been watching cricket recently at the MCG would agree with that. So you can download the Rushline app and you can take a look at all their stuff as well. But let me get into some comments. Oh, pretty. Rat says it's good to see Richardson back. It's good to see. It's almost good to almost see Richardson back. What did he bowl? It was 4 overs. I thought he bowled really well. I really liked the way he went about it. Cameron Green got the wicket there at the end. I think that's a really good way of using Cameron Green, by the way. When your frontline bowlers haven't been able to break through, and you can just bowl bouncers with him for like 3 overs and a couple of Yorkers. Anyway, I thought Jai bowled quite well, but obviously by the time he came on, it was kind of already done, right? But yeah, great to see him back. He really is an incredible talent, and him and Kyle Jamieson, and you think back to people like Shane Bond and some of the the great pace bowlers, Brett Schultz, that we never got, right? Bruce Reed, Ryan Harris, all these guys who's struggled. We know Joe Richardson can bowl. At what level we don't know, because he hasn't been tested enough, but we know he can bowl, and it's great to see him back and playing again. Asian Frat Boy says Josh Tongue would have to feel hard done by. How many more chances will he ever get the ball as a number 11 for a Boxing Day hat trick? Oh, will he? Yeah, it's been a really weird series for Josh Tongue, hasn't it? Because I think coming in, they weren't as sure on Josh Tongue as a bowler, and he's really earned the trust back. And I thought he bowled really well at times in Adelaide. Maybe not all the way through, but certainly I thought there was a case to be made for him to get the new ball in the second innings. I was kind of glad they gave it to Cast, only because I figured that if Cast had swung it in the first innings, you could get him to bowl over the wicket and swing it again. That said, I probably wouldn't have I would have given the new ball to Tongue in this game. But yeah, I think Tongue has probably done enough to say that he can actually really bowl, that he's not just the hit the wicket specialist that I think England have been doing. The one thing I would say on Tongue is he does look really bad against left-handers. And I kind of need someone like Varun Aaron or Steve Harmison to explain to me biomechanically why he's bad to left-handers. Because for me, he's got this beautiful angle, and his natural delivery should move away. So he should be bowling close to the stumps, which is hard to do as a right-arm bowler around the wicket, and then fading the ball away from them. And yet today, I still don't know what the plan was, but I think it was when Usman Khawaja came in, he just kept bowling too straight to him. And Usman Khawaja just kept flicking away, so it was too straight and too full. So unless they had some sort of Yorker plan I didn't understand, he just doesn't look like he's quite on it when it comes to bowling to the lefties at the moment. And I think his average suggests that as well. I know they put it up on the screen at one stage. Loopy says, in Australia, I'm kind of sick. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Loopy. There was the wrong message. I saw he sent another one. But he's basically saying that the pitches have been a joke. It isn't just the pitches, Loopy. It is the combination of the wobble ball, the pitches, and the new ball, right? Like it is all three things. And it obviously isn't just a thing in Test cricket either. This isn't like Australia have decided to put more grass on the wicket, because there's things happening in Shield cricket all the time. So I do think it's not as simple as, oh, these wickets are terrible. I don't think today was a 20-wicket day pitch. Again, maybe if England had to bat on it twice, I'd say it was a 20-wicket day pitch, but it was probably 14, right? Now, as I said, Australia had 2 wickets caught down the leg side and a run out, which certainly changes things quite a bit as well. So yeah, so that is... That played a part, I think, in what ends up happening in the day. Not a massive part. As I said, maybe it was an extra 25, 30 runs. Maybe 50 at most. It wasn't going to change things a lot. But it wouldn't have been a 20-wicket day. But yeah, I don't know how you play Jai Richardson, Michael Neser, Mitchell Starc, Scott Boland. If you had Hazelwood and Cummins, even more so, right? Like, I don't know how you play those sorts of bowlers with the kind of pressure they can create and the lateral movement they can all get on a wicket like this. And it's happening in Shield cricket. It's happening in Test cricket. You know, I've been talking to a couple of people in Australia. They have said that the early parts of summer have been a lot wetter. It's a big country, though. I can't imagine that's countrywide. I think there was a movement around the 2020s. There was a lot of pressure put on Kookaburra to fix their ball by Cricket Australia, make it more entertaining. And we've seen a lot more grass. But we did also hear that, you know, the Perth pitch, I almost have to take the Perth pitch out of this, because the Perth pitch has been so random in the last 3 years that I don't even know what's going on there. But it does feel like there is a lot more grass and a lot more movement, even accounting for the new Kookaburra ball. And it's a little bit like what happened to Indian players. Like, I think that one of the reasons Australian batters are struggling so much is because you go away from home to fight, right? And to hope to stay in games and to be useful to your team. But you find your confidence and your form usually batting at home. And the Australian batters just can't do that at the moment, right? Abhishek says, why do we always blame and rate the pitch when it's a bowler-friendly to be turning or grass and not the batters? Flat tracks are batter-friendly and no one blames that. Yeah, it is a bit interesting that if a team makes 300 for 2, quite often we'll look to the bowlers to have played a part in this. And if a team is 120 all out, the pitch is to blame, right, rather than the batters. Part of that is just because it is a batter-driven game, like narratively and everything else. But I think in both cases, I think actually the conversation over the last couple of years has slightly improved in cricket, in that we now understand that a very flat pitch is also a bad pitch. I know that's going to sound weird, but when I started, and I wrote about this a lot, like, I used to get so much flack from people when I would write that. If I could write that article 10 times in a row now, and people would keep agreeing with me, right? So I do think some of the conversation has changed. I also remember Jeffrey Dujon saying one of the most insightful things I've ever heard in cricket, and this is years ago as well, when he said it's very rare that a bowler gets a wicket when a batter hasn't played a partner. So even today, I'm not going to go back through all the wickets, but maybe playing at balls that you don't need to play at, pushing with hard hands, turning the face of the bat, playing slightly more expansively when the ball's angled in at the stumps. You know, all these sorts of little things do play a part in this. And as I said, I do think there was more wickets taken today than probably needed to happen, right? But sometimes that happens as well. Like, it's there are other days when it could have been a 15-wicket day and you have 10 wickets. Scardy says, I think this pitch might play out like the World Test Championship. Finals pitch, England have a chance. I'd have to look at the Melbourne data, but I don't think so. I mean, England have a chance in that it's a low-scoring game. Australia could get bowled out for something freakishly low, right, in the second innings, and England only have to chase, 150, 180, 220, right? Like, that's very, very possible. It's also possible that Australia get bowled out for 150 and England get bowled out for 70. Right? Like, weirdly enough, I said on the Discord channel that they should send Jai Richardson in. And I kind of think, partly because this is the ideal situation to send a night watch in, right? Because if they get out, they've already done their job. By going in, they've done their job. So if you're going to dispose of a player, but in sending Scott Boland out, which I think is also fair, I was just joking with Jai Richardson because I thought, man hasn't played a lot of cricket. Let him have a bat. But with Boland, we've seen him on these kinds of pitches before find a way to score runs because he bowls on these pitches a lot, but he also bats on these pitches a lot, right? And this specific wicket. And so if he can bat 8 to 10 overs tomorrow, it could really change things. But yeah, England still have a chance because it is a low-scoring game like this. Is always gives you a chance to come back. The overarching issue though has to be, they're not very good and they're not very confident at the moment. And if the wicket is if the wicket gets flat, can Atkinson, Tongue, Stokes, and Cass get wickets tomorrow? Right? If the wicket's not flat and it continues to be like this, and Australia get bowled out within 2 sessions, England still has to come in and bat on this. So it has to get flat almost exactly when England come into bat. And I just think that's so hard. But yeah, they're not. They're definitely not out of the game. It just feels like it because of the way the day started and the way it ended. Hammerful says, diabolical pitch or the batter's drop kicks. Look, there was definite lateral movement, and it was consistent lateral movement. And I thought England bowled better than they had in almost the rest of the series combined outside of that first innings. But I still didn't think England was incredible. Like, I wasn't sitting there going, wow, this is great bowling. Whereas when Australia came on, it was great bowling. I'm not sure how you're supposed to score with the talent that England have with the bat against the bowling that Australia had on that wicket. It didn't quite feel the case when Australia was batting. I felt it was tricky when Australia was batting, and I felt like it was impossible when England was batting. Could have also been that the pitch sped up a little bit, or there was more lateral movement later on, but I think it's probably less likely to do with that, and probably more likely to do with the fact that the Australian batters the Australian bowlers are just so much better. After 10-11 is 2017-18 England's best series in Australia. It's a hell of a thought process there. I suppose it is. One of them doesn't count, so we don't have to worry about that too much, do we? But yeah, no, I think I like where your head's at there. It's very similar to 13-14. I mentioned 13-14 in my piece today, partly because I think the pattern is more similar to 13-14. But yeah, they really just haven't been very good. 17-18, I suppose is the best of that lot. I'm trying to remember back. Did I cover 17-18? Yes, I must have. Did I cover all the test matches? 17-18. I think I did. 13-14, 17-18. Yeah, because I didn't do 20. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember it being close. Maybe just closer. Occam's Taser says, Joker gets the only 50 today. Fun times. How many points didn't what's his name? Didn't Ant-Man score 50 as well for Minnesota? Or was it, maybe it was 46, 47. Yeah, I must admit, I was watching the Nuggets game and I kind of thought they had it in the bag. So I was watching it in the background and there was about 2 minutes ago. And I think, so I don't get to see that many Nuggets games live, right? Because of the time zone and the fact that they're on the West Coast. And I was watching that game and I think this year they've lost 8 games before this. And I reckon I've seen 5 of those live. I was at Robbie's house making him turn one on for me that we somehow lost, that we shouldn't have lost. That might have been the first loss of the year. I saw the Houston game the other night. We lost that. Like, I've seen about 5 or 6 maybe of their losses and only like 3 or 4 of the wins. Like, I see them the next day. And so they're up by 10 in the fourth quarter. And then suddenly Ant just went on a run and got it into overtime. And then they scored like the first 10 points of overtime. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm going to see another Nuggets loss, and then Joker just went nuts and scored over 50, and yeah, fun times. Where are we here? Honestwa says, New Year break for England post day 2, win or lose, lottery pitch or just bad judgment. In my opinion, Australia bad luck, England lack of match practice. Yeah, I suppose England can have a good break. I don't know whether they'll celebrate New Year's. Maybe go back to Sydney. I probably wouldn't go back to Noosa. I'm not sure any England team can ever go back to Noosa, by the way. I don't think it was a lottery pitch when Australia was batting. Look, there is that. You give a pitch like that to Scott Boland and Michael Neser as well, those kinds of bowlers, it's hard to play on them. That is a county wicket, right? And England don't have a county attack. England have a test attack. And Australia have more of a county attack. Even more so in this game. You know, you've got someone like Jai Richardson who can wobble the ball around, but also swing it in both directions. Stark can swing it and wobble it around. Neser can swing it and wobble it around. And Boland gets more wobble than anyone, right? Now, they're a bit faster than a county attack and obviously a lot more skillful and varied than a county attack. But, you know, you produce a wicket like this and good luck if you bat like England. Where are we here? Kiwi Nick says, curious, is this MCG pitch its peak or can it favour the bowlers even more on day 1 wicket? Also, do we live in an era of missed careers due to injuries? I think every year we miss careers, right? That's just a normal thing. Dennis Lilly breaks onto the scene and then spends 2.5 years out of the game. Like Jeff Thompson was the fastest bowler in the world and injures his shoulder and is never the same again. And there's just tons of them, right? Ian Bishop, Shane Bond, right? It's just that's bowling fast is hard. Curious, is this the MCG pitch peak or can it favour the bowlers even more for day 1 wicket? I've got a feeling it was worse on another year. I can't remember if it was an Ashes year or somewhere else, but I think we've seen some years where it's even more, where it's been more brutal. I mean, it was still pretty tough today. I wouldn't have wanted to bat on it. Felix says, if Cricket Australia loves having multiple home radio broadcasters, why do they not allow multiple away radio stations? They do. It's a bit more complicated than that. I don't know how much I could talk about it as someone who obviously works for TalkSport a lot, but kind of the way that I sort of understand it is the way that BBC and TalkSport look at this is they only want the cricket if they can do it exclusively, right? There's something about BBC and exclusive rights in England that I don't really understand, but in general, like they would rather do it if they were on their own. I still think the ECB's made a mistake in not just saying, yeah, of course BBC could have it. We'll halve your rate, but you also TalkSport or LBC or I don't know whatever other radio stations are around can also do it if they're willing to invest money and be involved. Because I think that's a much better way of doing it. I think that's actually a huge advantage of if you're in Australia now and it's the summer, chances are that your favorite radio station is going to be covering cricket in one way or another. And that's just not happening in the UK, right? And there's no reason for that to happen, especially since BBC and TalkSport are such different audiences, even if they both have sport at the heart of a lot of it. They're just different audiences. Why wouldn't you want both? So, yeah, I do think there's something there. But, yeah, there's also I think it's a mistake. But I think around the world, TV, radio, everything, I think that the deals aren't done correctly in cricket. Again and again. But I'm not an actual expert on how that happened, Felix. Like, that's not me being a TalkSport guy, but I'm not an expert. I don't know how much TalkSport were into the rights or whatever, and I don't know if anyone else bid for them outside of BBC. I would assume it was those two companies, though, because they're the two that generally bid for everything. Lonesome says, why do people pundits still hyper-focus on England batting when it's so clear the difference is quality and experience of Aussie bowlers? I think because the batting was their strength coming in as well. And it's the dramatic part of baseball, right? It's the reason that we all sort of started watching baseball and taking notice and why they won games early on. But I think you're right. I'm trying to think of what I think by Adelaide, it was really hard. Yeah, when we saw Lonesome, when we saw the flat pitch, and England got a bit lucky and still bowled Australia out cheap, or cheaper than they should have been on that one. And then Australia came out and just showed them how to bowl on a flat pitch. That was actually the gulf between the two teams at that stage was so incredible. And so I do think you've got a really, really good point there as well. But I do think a lot of it is just the drama and everything of it. And we probably, although to be fair, the media thought their bowling attack was better than it was. But I think that everyone thought that Australia had the better bowling attack and England had the better batting lineup. And that's just no longer the case. So maybe there's a disappointment factor there as well. I don't know. I'm not out there, Lonesome, right? So I'm kind of at a distance. Like, you cover a series very differently when you're not touring with everyone. Even though I was famous for never disagreeing with all the writers and pundits anyway. Like, at least when you're out there, you kind of understand their points a little bit more, why they're focusing on something, whereas, other than the odd WhatsApp. And we're usually talking about other things then. Prudvi says, when the ball is doing so much, batters obviously make more mistakes because they can't settle. Try to punish the bad ball and perish trying to control the narrative. Yeah, I mean, that's true, right? There are more mistakes. It's harder to stay in. We saw Steve Smith come down the crease today. We saw Cameron Green come down the crease. I think I've seen Green do it a few times. Smith doesn't generally do it. I think that tells you that the wicket was difficult without looking at the amount of wickets being taken. I think, as I said before, I think it was difficult in two different ways. I haven't heard any, obviously I went off and did some other work straight away, but I haven't done a lot of work on, I haven't done a lot of listening to the players, but it'd be interesting to see what the batters make of it. But from my perspective, it was a little too paced, a little bit tennis ball bouncy, and lateral movement. It's kind of the combination of all three of those things is really, really tough. Like, just lateral movement on its own, you can probably handle. At least you might still get bowled out on day one, but perhaps not so cheaply. And the stickiness and everything else, if the ball isn't moving sideways, you can bat as well. So, yeah. We got another one. Prudvi says, I think Ashwin's point makes more sense in this match. I think, ignore the Kolkata pitch. When it's a spin track, people don't blame the batsman as opposed to a fast bowling pitch. I mean, I think you're wrong. I think lots of people have blamed the batters today. That's what I mean. I think a lot of that is there's a cultural heritage that Ashwin's pulling back against, which is true and has been used a lot. But the other thing is, as I've said a million times before, you can have a pitch that does this on day one and then flattens out on day two and day three. That's not generally how spin wickets go. So it is actually different, and it should be talked about differently. But I have mentioned on this show that there were two catches down the leg side that I thought, and a run out, and I thought Australia could have scored another 30 to 50 runs. And that England shot and that Australia bowled exceptionally well. I think that's fair. I don't think it was a 20-wicket day, right? But I've said that with spin pitches before. So, again, you're fighting against a narrative that on this channel doesn't really make any sense because we've been talking about this stuff ahead of the curve for years. Yetan says, do you think many incoming batters would get timed out if only the fielding team appealed? No. No, I don't think so. I know there have been occasions. I want to say Gary Morgan, who's a statistician that we've worked with on TalkSpot for a time. I know there was an occasion where there was a couple of batters. There are some batters who are notoriously slow at getting out to bat. And if you want to go on the, are they ready to actually face? I think you also have another element to that. I think if you are really paying attention, you might be able to. But you also, this is a thing for a ground like the MCG. The MCG, you have to understand how far you are from the actual ground at the MCG. So I think it's about a 50-meter walk, isn't it? To get out to bat. And it's not a straightforward walk. I'm trying to think of exactly how they do it. It's a really long thing. So I think you have to make allowances for that. There are certain players, though, it's worth having a look at. And I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of it. Only because, like, again, there's no real reason for you not to be out and ready and batting. But it doesn't seem like it's been pushed all that much. Honest Boss says, Joe Root's form screams inconsistency. Won decent innings per series. Stat padding at home. Average away. Smith and Kane have been better for years. What are you talking about? One decent innings per series. Well, that's obviously not true. So I don't really. Usually he goes on splurges. So I would say the opposite of that is true. Stat padding at home. Let's have a look at his record. Let's have a look. Joe Root. Stat padding is a phrase that needs to fuck off and die too. Do you know how hard it is to make a fucking test run? Anyway, where are we here? Joe Root away from home. Why can I not find it? Averaging high 40s away from home. That is not average away from home, my man. Especially not in this era. Fucking hell. That's what Virat averaged in his entire career. So no. So there's two of your statements are wrong. What was the third one? Smith and Kane have been better for years. Kane Williamson is just not a better bat than Joe Root. Joe, he's just not a better batter than Joe Root. Kane Williamson has some holes in his career. He has some fantastic things in his career as well. But away from home, and I'm not counting the neutral matches just because they're a pain in the ass here. But he averages about the same. I mean, Kane Williamson averages 65 at home and 42 away from home. And Root averages 55 at home and 46 away from home, right? Not including neutrals, which I think will bring Kane Williamson up a little bit, although Joe Root's done okay in neutrals as well. So what you've just said about Root is actually what Williamson does, right? Like, I still think it's nonsense, but stat padding at home is literally what he does. He averages like more than 20 at home than he does away, right? It's just, Root's an unquestionable great. It's been an honor to be able to follow his career. I mean, all four of them, really. But, someone who's lived in the UK and, traveled out to some of his series as well. He's just a marvel at what he does. And all four of them are, right? Like, it's okay if you like Kane more or, Smith is better. I don't think that's, but let's not talk shit, right? His form is not inconsistent. He does have an element, I would say, if you look at Root's record, of a little bit what we talk about with Usman Khawaja, these kind of sprees. So we take out his first couple of years. So he averages 2014, 2015, he goes on a spree. And that sort of carries over a little bit. Then he has 3 bad years. Another high year, then another middling year, then 2 more high years. But yeah, he has averaged over 50 in the last 3 years in Test cricket, which must be hard to do if you're only playing 1 decent innings per series. But that's us done for the Morning Glory. We'll be Morning Glory, 3rd innings, whatever it is. It's still morning. It's still glorious. It's probably less glorious at the moment. Oh wait. Just on the way out. Abjad says, can this England bowling ever get better? Cast Jacks. Yeah, I mean, they're not. I was going to say they're not going to pick Jacks again. They just picked him again, so I'm wrong. I don't understand why Potts is not playing. I don't know why Cast is bowling with the new ball. I don't know why Jacks is playing. Potts had to play in this series. Maybe there's something going on about him. I don't know. That again, it was one of those things when you remove from them and you're not talking to people around the hatches, and you bump into David Saker and he tells you something, or you talk to one of the England batters as he's coming out the nets and he tells you this guy's bowling well, and this, you just don't get that when you're sitting in your office in South London. But can their bowling get better? Yeah, I think so. I just think I think they could be better now. I think their bowling would be better in this Test match and the last Test match had Potts and Dawson played. So, can it get better? Yes. Are we on the verge of a great England bowling attack? I really like Atkinson as a first change bowler if they have really good opening bowlers. I really worry about Jofra ever being able to bowl consistently. I think Wood's done, right? Certainly they can't rely on Wood anymore. There's guys like Sonny Baker, I suppose, coming through as well. But yeah, there's a question. I mean, to be fair, Australians, next generation of bowling is not particularly awe-inspiring either. Anyway, that's it for me done. I'll be back probably at lunch tomorrow. It might be the last Morning Glory tomorrow, so you have to come and watch it. And we'll be there for after play as well. I'm Jarrod Kimber. This is the third innings on Good Areas Live. Plenty more content, plenty of all those things. Go and download the Rushline app as well, and we will see you again tomorrow for more of this. Cricket boards actually make watching their games almost impossible now. I spend almost as much time trying to find where I can view it as I do actually following the action. That is why I use NordVPN. They let me find all the cricket I want to watch while protecting me from the nasty side of the internet. Nord will free your cricket matches. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/good areas to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months on top. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Watch every match with NordVPN.